Hi everyone, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I am Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor the Art Impressions Way. And this week's project is one of our newest releases. This is our little wooden chair set. And it comes with the wooden chair, it comes with some more elements. And this week we're going to use the chair and the little pot and this little vine that comes with it. Okay, so let's get started. It's really easy to do, just like all the other projects. You're going to be surprised how easy it is and super fun. Okay, so we're going to start out by inking the little pot that goes onto the chair. We're going to do this first, and we're going to ink this in the African violet. So I'm just going to take my marker and just ink this up. And I'm going to stamp it about in the center of my paper. Okay, and I turned it a little bit just to add some interest. You don't have to do that, but I think it's kind of fun to make it a little different, not the expected. So we're going to take it now, we're going to add some water to it, and we're going to pull the color out of the lines. Just drag this over to the center, just like we do with every other container. This one's round, so we want to make sure that we're seeing that highlight in here. And we can add some more color to it later, but let's just start out with it this way. Okay, so now we're going to stamp our chair over it. And in order to do that, we need to cover this so that we don't get the ink from the chair, over the top of the pot. So I have cut a little mask. So I've just stamped this again on a little Post-it note, and I'm covering this pot now. So I'm going to stamp my chair. And I'm going to use my my little positioner because I want to make sure that I get it in the right place. So I'm going to place the little shield into the corner of the positioner, and I'm going to ink the chair. And because we're going to make it a color, and it's sort of old and rustic, we're going to ink it in the sepia. So go ahead and just ink that up. And now I'm going to place this shield into the corner, and I'm just going to stamp this chair right into the corner, just like that. And now I can move it and I can see exactly where I'm going to place it. Make sure that the bottom of the pot is on the bottom of the chair. So don't have it hanging off like this. Make sure that it's really sitting on there just like this. And I would put it more to the edge because you can see on here, we're going to add these flowers to it. So we want to make sure we have enough room to add these blooms. Okay, so that looks pretty good right there. And you can see here, this part of the chair, we're going to leave this off because we want to make sure we can get all those flowers in here and not have to fight these lines. Okay, so when we go to ink this again, we're just going to leave this part off. So I'm going to place this back in here now. And I'm going to go back and ink my chair again. And I'm just going to use the sepia. I think it's easier to ink the whole thing and then just kind of rub it off with my finger, but that's up to you. If it's easier for you just not to ink it, that's perfectly fine too. That's the cool thing about a stamp, is that you can just use the parts that you want to use. Okay, so we've got our chair in here now. You can see this part is left off, and we can remove our little our mask, and we can see that we've got our pot sitting right on our chair, just like that. Okay, so easy. So let's go ahead and pull the color out of those lines. So we're going to dip the brush in water now, and we're just going to drag our brush over these lines. Just kind of follow the lines, especially the ones that are close together. That's where the color is going to be the darkest. So underneath here, back in the back, these legs in the background, those are going to be dark. On the sides, you can see where there's double lines here. That's also going to be dark. And you can drag this color over on the chair. Remember, we don't cross the lines, so you want to stay in these little sections, especially when it comes to boards like this on the chair. If you drag your brush along these lines, you're going to make that flat, and we're going to lose this texture of the chair. We're going to lose the integrity of the boards, and that's what we want to see. Okay, so we'll pull a little of this color down here, and a little bit of this over here, and we are about ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so let's add our little blooms in here. So we're going to use the little blooms from the new foliage set. I should have showed you this first because in addition to the little mini set, we're going to use a couple more things. We're going to use the little birds from the new bird set, this little guy right here. the large grass from the foliage set. This is the original foliage set. And then from the new flower set, we're going to use a couple of things. This little batch of balloons here and this little one right here. We're going to use these two. Okay? Now that we got that established. So I'm going to take that little bunch of blooms here and I'm going to ink the stems. So I'm using the olive green. Is the Prussian blue on the top, not the violet. So we're using the Prussian blue, that's a number 29. And I'm just going to use my little Post-it note again and make sure that I'm getting this in the right place. So I just covered that little pot and I'm going to stamp this in here just a couple of times, just like this. Okay, so we've got our little blooms in there and we've protected our pot. So we're ready to go on and dip the brush in water and just touch all of these little blooms. So easy to do. Keep your hand light and just touch so you're not making any brush strokes. Your hand is flat on the table and you're just kind of jumping it around. Don't be afraid to go outside of the image as well and add a few more of them out on the outside. Okay, so we're going to add some water now to the stems. And these too, you can drag some of this color out as well. And just go ahead and blend that together. Let's go ahead and add some color now to this little pot. We're going to do that from the palette. And I'm going to use a green. So this is the pine green. And I'm just going to put a little color onto my palette. And I'm going to brush a little color onto here. Remember to start on the sides where the color would be the darkest. And just kind of drag it over to the center. This is a process, so take your time. Make sure your brush isn't too wet. And the more times that you apply the color, the darker it's going to get. So you can let that dry for a second, and you can take another coat. Start on the sides, and you can see that color is getting darker. Just pull that color over. It's just so fun to do. And it looks so natural to do it this way. Okay, let's add a little embellishment to that. And we can do that with any color, but let's take some of this Prussian blue. Put a little bit on our brush here and just make something a little decorative on here, just like that. Okay, so let's go on to the next step, and that is to add the grasses and the flowers down below. So we're going to use our large grass. That's from the original foliage set. And we're going to ink this with the number 15. And just stamp this in here a bunch. You can use the small grasses too. But we kind of have to put this chair down on the ground. We have to kind of cement it down to the ground. So we're going to pull this color up and out. You can see I kind of concentrated the image where the legs are. And so if you have some open space in here, just pull that color over. It's okay to do that. And let's add a little shadow in here because the light would be coming directly down, and so we're going to see a shadow underneath, and it's really important to do that. That's going to add a lot of dimension to your image to do that. So let's take our African violet and we're going to pull a little of this color off, and we're just going to make a little square. So kind of go from leg to leg. Right underneath here like that. That looks pretty good. That's about all we have to do. So let's add our little flowers in. And that's these little wildflowers that come from the new flower set, which I love. And we're going to ink these in two colors. So we're going to ink the blooms, and then we're going to ink the stems. So the stems I just did in the olive green, and now I'm inking the blooms, this time in the number 8, the violet. And we're going to stamp it a couple of times in here. Let's do it again. And let's get the stem. And let's add a couple more over here. And a couple more in the background. Now this time I'm just going to ink the blooms. So just the blooms. And you can see I'm getting some more dimension in here. And I'm kind of stamping these right over the top. So just the blooms. We don't need the foliage necessarily every time. Okay, so now I'm going to take my brush and touch all these little blooms. We don't need to do anything with the stems. Those are good the way they are. And just get all these little guys, the light one in the background as well as the dark ones in the foreground. Okay, you can see how they kind of come to life. If you want to, you can add a little center in them. Adds a little more dimension to do that. It's kind of fun. That's up to you. Just add a little dot in all of them. So we've got our little flowers in here. Let's add our vine. This is the new little vine, and it actually works both ways. So you can turn it and go to the left and turn it and go to the right. So let's just put this in here, just like this. Let's put another one in here. And let's turn it now the other direction. Put another little one in here. Just kind of wherever you want to put this. And we don't need to add a lot of water to this. This is a tiny little vine, and so it doesn't need a lot. Just kind of touch the little leaves, and it's going to be good to go. Okay, so let's go on to the chair. We're going to add some color to the chair now, and we can do that from our palette. And I've got two colors on here. I've got the Prussian blue and I've got the African violet, so we can do a mix of those. Remember to, I know I say this over and over, but it's so important not to cross those lines. And it's okay to leave a little space in between. That's going to kind of pop things up as well. And that's what we're looking for, something that's a little more three-dimensional. Remember in the back, this is going to be really dark back here, these legs. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's better if you don't color things in line to line. It's always better that way. We can add some of this color now to the pot too. It's kind of in the shadow back here. And a mix of color, I think, adds a lot. When you look at a chair, out in a field, even if it's colored one color, it's got a lot of different colors in it. The way the light hits it. And all these steps just make it look more natural, and that's what we're going for. We don't want anyone to know that it's a stamped image. We want them to think that it's a little painting, and it is. This is your own work of art, and no two will ever be the same. Okay, let's add some sky in here. So I'm going to take some of this Prussian blue, a little more of this Prussian blue, and I'm just going to add a little color to the background. A little bit in here like this. Just put that color on, and then you can always wash it out. If it gets a little too dark, you can always brush it out with just plain water. Don't be afraid to pull the color out of the lines as far as the chair goes too, because you can drag some of this color out. I love this abstract look. And the more that you blend this color, the softer it gets. So it's okay to blend all this together. Okay, one more thing. Let's put our little bird on the top up here. And of course we're going to use our positioner because I don't want to guess as to where that will go. So I'm going to get my little L square out again. And I'm going to stamp that little bird in the corner. And we're going to use a sepia with him. So we're going to ink him up really lightly. Put our little T-square in the corner. And we can see this little guy will be right about here. That's about perfect. Put this back. And that looks about right. So let's add a little color to him. First we pull this color out of the lines. And don't forget this little step. You know, when you go to stamp these little critters, it's really, it's hard to get these tiny little areas, especially the eyes, to show up really dark. So always take that fine tip. This is the sepia, and really darken that area. So always pull the color out of the lines and then brush your color in. Take your time. Remember, the face should be the lightest. And build this color as well. It doesn't take a lot. It really doesn't. And let's put a little shadow under him. That's with the African violet. Put a little more color on here. This would be really dark under here. And we have our shadow underneath. And that looks pretty good. We've got our little chair about finished. One last thing to do, and that is sign and date. Don't forget this little step. It's as important as your painting. Make sure you sign and date and put it on a card or give it away. Someone is going to love this. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.